Well, if you tuned in to watch our almost 9-hour broadcast on Tuesday night, the night of the U.S. presidential election, you will know our next guest, Ben Weingarten, a fellow at the Claremont Institute, a columnist with Newsweek, and he was our In the States expert. I should tell you before we go to Ben today that Justin Trudeau's CBC state broadcaster reported 378,000 viewers on Tuesday night, 378,000. I can tell you that YouTube records that we had 308,000 viewers, a little bit less than the CBC, but then again, we get a little bit less cash from the taxpayer than them too, don't you think? Well, here's Ben joining us now, again via Skype. Ben, good to see you. I hope you had a chance to catch up on your sleep, or have you been staying up late each night with the shenanigans of the vote counting and miscounting and ballot packing? What do you make of the last few days?
I must admit, it's been a few sleepless nights on my end, and really for reasons that transcend this particular election and sort of the demoralizing turn of events, where it feels as if defeat was snatched from the jaws of victory in some respects. And I think really my main sort of depression stems from the fact that had this been a normal election where most people voted in person as they always do, therefore mitigating the chance of fraud, where there were substantial regulations and rules put in place in terms of authentication and verification of who the person is, like a photo ID, for example, and the president had lost on election night or shortly thereafter, every conservative in the country would have accepted it, obviously grudgingly and with much consternation, et cetera. But the way this went down, the process by which it has gone down, is something where the confidence in the integrity of our electoral system has been shaken in the minds of about half the country, almost the minds of almost 70 million Americans. And that's something that we're not going to be able to recover from in the near term and maybe ever. And so that is really what I find to be the most painful aspect of this. Obviously, we don't know how the election is going to shake out, but even if the president ultimately prevails and sort of runs the table with respect to the litigation that's currently underway and the recounts and the like, and it's certainly possible, certainly within the realm of probability, the bottom line is that our faith in the system will never be restored, I don't believe, after what transpired. And that's something that will make this, if Joe Biden, I'd put in air quotes, but the Biden-Harris ticket does enter the office. In some respects, it'll be a Pyrrhic victory for them because half of the country will never feel that this is fully legitimate.
Yeah. Well, I only disagree with a single letter you said. You talked about a broken system, but I would say broken systems, because it's one thing to have clearly anomalies, 23,000 votes suddenly found, and exactly 23,000 out of 23,000 are for Biden, not a single one for Trump. So it looks like the steal is happening so brazenly, but that's because other systems are broken too. Media skepticism, media curiosity, social media, where ordinary people can share things. I was scrolling through the president's Twitter feed, and about 50% of his comments are being blocked by Twitter. Used to be the politicians censored the media. Now the media is censoring the politician. And so I think that what's so demoralizing for me, and I'm not even an American, I'm just a fan from abroad, is that the voting rules are broken, but the other checks and balances that ought to be there and certainly would be there if, God forbid, it were Republicans trying to steal the vote, the media, the judges, the law professors, every other force in society, they're colluding with the great steal. That's just as depressing to me, is to read journalists saying, oh, look at Trump, he just won't go quietly, he's the one with the coup. That's what's terrifying to me, is the unanimity and the collusion amongst the entire establishment. That's what it looks like to me.
Yeah, it sort of makes us a one-party state, in effect, and I'd incorporate into the state not just the federal bureaucracy that 99% hates the president, or the vast majority of the legislative branch, or most of the judges in the country, but then, to your point, the corporations, media, big tech, the academy, entertainment, all of it follows the same line. Even whether you're Republican or Democrat falling in that establishment, it's the same thing. They all hate him. They hate what the president represents. They hate the millions of people who adore him and the others who vote for him as, in effect, a giant middle finger to the establishment that so looks down upon them. And I think, and I'm working on something on this that I might publish, really, President Trump, of his many achievements, perhaps the greatest achievement of all has been in exposing the rot and corruption in our system. And he's exposed that rot and corruption because the establishment that so hates him exposed itself in its willingness to destroy all the institutions that they claim to be defending to try to take him down. So this is just one more act in the perpetual coup that's been undertaken against him. But it's really not about him. It's really about the millions of people who support him and what he represents, which is an anti-establishment, outsider, blue-collar billionaire who is brash, who's essentially pro-American, patriotic, traditional, and his sole ethos is American greatness, making America great again. It's not conservatism or libertarianism or progressivism or anything else. It's let's make the country better. Let's live in the same traditional place where we believe in family and country and American workers and putting our troops and their families first. And that's a message that clearly resounded with millions of people. And it's not going away after this. If anything, the millions of people who love and adore the president and who feel scorned by this establishment that looks down upon them, if anything, are going to feel even more scorned and more motivated to want to go out there and express themselves and probably run for office. And so this movement's not going away. And even if the Republican establishment would like to see it go away, it's not in their political interest to, because they all rode his coattails during this election. But more to the point, there are millions of people out there who have been activated in a way that's unique in American history. He's been a unique force. I hope that force will continue for the next 4 years. But even if it doesn't, it's still going to exist in the American political scene, and that's for the good of the country, in my view.
That's an excerpt from my daily show, The Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. You gotta subscribe. Go to rebelnews.com.